at the end of the book of Genesis. And so we're looking at Genesis 25 and following. So I'm going to read for us out of Genesis 25, starting at verse 19, and go to the end of the chapter, Genesis 25:19. Now these are the records of the generations of Isaac, Abraham's son. Abraham became the father of Isaac, and Isaac was 40 years old when he took Rebekah, the daughter of Bethuel, the Aramean of Paddan Aram, the sister of Laban the Aramean, to be his wife. Isaac prayed to the Lord on behalf of his wife because she was barren, and the Lord answered him, and Rebekah his wife conceived. But the children struggled together within her, and she said, "If it is so, why then am I this way?" So she went to inquire of the Lord. The Lord said to her, "Two nations are in your womb, and two peoples will be separated from your body, and one people shall be stronger than the other, and the older shall serve the younger." When her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. Now the first came forth red, all over like a hairy garment, and they named him Esau. Afterward his brother came forth with his hand holding on to Esau's heel, so his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 60 years old when she gave birth to them. When the boys grew up, Esau became a skillful hunter, a man of the field, but Jacob was a peaceful man living in tents. Now Isaac loved Esau because he had a taste for game, but Rebekah loved Jacob. When Jacob had cooked stew, Esau came in from the field, and he was famished. And Esau said to Jacob, "Please let me have a swallow of that red stuff there, for I am famished." Therefore his name was called Edom. But Jacob said, "First sell me your birthright." Esau said, "Behold, I am about to die, so of what use then is the birthright to me?" And Jacob said, "First swear to me." So he swore to him and sold his birthright to Jacob. Then Jacob gave Esau bread and lentil stew, and he ate and drank and rose and went on his way. Thus Esau despised his birthright. So we've seen this. The Bible presents people as they really are, sometimes godly and full of faith, sometimes self-centered, fearful, or wicked. The man we're about to study was at least as complicated as any that we have investigated. Jacob is said to have faith, and yet he had numerous serious flaws. We can learn from his example, as we can from all Bible personalities, both from his mistakes and his victories. Number one, Rebekah, Isaac's wife, was unable to conceive a child for many years. What did Isaac do in response to the situation? He prayed for her. He prayed for his wife. And that sets a very positive example for husbands and wives. When husbands are tuned in to their wife and understand what causes her grief or sorrow or pain, sometimes husbands can do something practical to help. Sometimes it's entirely out of our hands. And Isaac had the wisdom to realize that this was something that only God could deal with, and he prayed for her. That is a great example to follow. Number two, how many years did Isaac and Rebekah wait for a child? 20 years. That's a long time. And remember, that culture, having a child is a big, big deal. I mean, it's a big deal in our culture, but in that culture, it's a huge deal. And so 20 years they waited. Number three, what did God, in his perfect timing, do? He answered Isaac's prayer. In fact, he doubly answered them by giving them twins. And so Isaac's wife is going to have two babies. Number four, read Psalm 127. What attitude towards conception and unplanned pregnancies should Christians have? Every child, every conception is a gift from God. Every single baby is a gift from the Lord and is to be treasured and is to be acknowledged. This life is from God. Every human life is just God's intervention, and there is absolutely no room in Christian thinking, Christian theology, for anything getting close to abortion. There's just no space for that at all. Now, of course, we all agree to that. We all say, yes, yes. What would happen if we had contact with a young lady who had gotten pregnant and she was saying, maybe I should have an abortion? And we all said, no, don't do that. Would we be willing to go the extra step? What would the extra step be? We'll help you. We'll help you. Don't kill the baby. We're going to be here. We're going to step in. What do you need? And that would be really something, wouldn't it? To sacrifice, to say, you keep that baby, you deliver that baby full term, and maybe the baby, maybe she just can't take care, and maybe the baby's going to go up for adoption. Maybe she's going to be a single mom and take care of that baby. But we would say, let us help you. And that, of course, would be the biblical thing to do, wouldn't it? To show love in that way. So, every child is a gift from God. Number 5, Rebekah felt her babies struggling together at least once. It is possible her pregnancy was quite difficult because of this in an ongoing way. When she asked God why it was so, what was his answer? 2 nations are in your womb. The older shall serve the younger. So the Lord's statement that the older shall serve the younger can seem like a minor detail in the narrative, but it is part of a pattern that God sovereignly set up. Even starting with Rebekah's husband, Isaac was technically not the older firstborn of Abraham's sons. Ishmael was, yet God chose to place his special blessing and promises on Isaac, the son of Sarah. And so God is saying the older shall serve the younger, and that is something that God has designed. Number 6, when the twins were born, the first child delivered was red and hairy. So they named him Esau, which means hairy. His younger brother was holding him by the heel, so they named him Jacob. It means one who grabs, or grabs by the heel, or supplanter. And those characteristics are going to continue. Esau is a hairy man. He loves to be out in the fields. He's a hunter. And Jacob, you can see where grabber or supplanter could be understood to be, he's an opportunity seeker. He's looking for, how do I get ahead? And how do I connive? And that, of course, is part of his character, too. Number 7, when the boys grew up, what sort of a man did Esau become? A skillful hunter, a man of the field. So he loved to be outside. He was an outdoorsman. He's an archer. He loves to hunt. Maybe he likes to fish. And he loves just spending all day outdoors, and he likes it when it gets cold. He likes it when it's hot. He's a guy who lives outdoors all the time. Number 8, what sort of a man did Jacob become? A peaceful man living in tents. Sometimes the description of Jacob in verse 20 leads people to a mistaken idea that Jacob was soft, lazy, or even effeminate. This is not really what is in view here. Rather, while Esau took joy and satisfaction from living outside, tracking and killing wild game as a skilled hunter, Jacob was a man who tended to duties involving the household, keeping track of the domestic herds of sheep, goats, cattle, donkeys, and camels, making sure the household staff were well organized, and so on. Rotherham's translation of this verse has the suggested words, ready, versatile, all-round, clever. Jacob is a hard worker in the duties of running the operation, while Esau is an outdoorsman and a free spirit. So sometimes we get the mistaken idea that Jacob's kind of soft, he's lazy, he's almost kind of, feminine. No, that's not true. He's just well organized. He likes to see the household running smoothly, and he's good at it. He's a good organizer. He's a hard worker. He's not a free spirit. He probably has a clipboard with charts on it, and he runs things very well. Esau, he has no time for clipboards. He has no time for that. He's outside. He's hunting. He is looking at tracks in the ground. He's saying, I think I could get that antelope. And that's what Esau lives in. So number 9, which parent favored which son? Isaac loved Esau, but Rebekah loved. So evidently, Isaac had kind of a kindred spirit with Esau. The idea of living outside, going for long, long walks, hiking up into the rocks and looking for wild animals, looking out over a wide expanse of territory, and that appeals to Isaac. He says, boy, I like that. And he even likes the game that Esau kills and cooks and so on. But Rebekah loved Jacob. She likes order. She likes organization. She likes things to run smoothly. Can you see a problem? What is it? Favoritism. Each parent has a favorite son. That's not a good thing. That's not biblical. That is not wise. There's actually laws about this in the Torah, in the Pentateuch. God gave Israel laws, and some of the specific laws are, remember that Israelites could, God didn't ever approve of it, but it did happen, marry more than one wife. And sometimes you would have two wives and one is your favorite. And then your wives would have kids. And God says, if your unloved wife has a kid and your loved wife has a kid, you're not allowed to play favorites. You're not allowed to cut the kid of the unloved wife out of your will. You can't do that. You have to treat them both the right way. And so there's a principle in Scripture. Now, not playing favorites with children, I'm going to make a statement, and you think about it. Not playing favorites with your children doesn't necessarily mean that you treat them exactly right. Or I should say exactly the same. Exactly the same. How can that be so? So you can picture this. One child, in the matter of corporal punishment, takes a whack and just laughs because they think it's funny. And they are not going to cry because that would be to show a sign of weakness. And you can wail on them until your hand is stinging, and they're not going to show you that you're the boss. Another child, you can just look at them with disappointment, and they melt into butter. So, how do you treat them? Well, it requires wisdom and grace to handle that the proper way. And I'm not saying that you have different levels of punishment, but I am saying you have an understanding of who your kids are. But favoritism is forbidden in the Bible. That is not to be tolerated. So number 10, it sounds like Jacob has some desirable qualities from verse 27. However, we find out something else about him in Esau in verses 28 to 34. When Esau came in from a time in the field, evidently hunting, and was famished, what did Jacob make him do before he gave his brother some lentil stew? He sold him his birthright, and then he confirmed it by swearing it to him. So this is really bad on both ends. The birthright is the eldest, the firstborn, is going to inherit the job, the duty of running the household. All the duties and all the privileges that go with that. And Esau is willing to sell that for a bowl of stew. The privilege and the duty of saying, I will take charge when Dad dies, I will step up, I will run the household, I'll take care of the family, I'll do what has to be done to keep things running. Esau doesn't care about that. But it's also bad on Jacob's end. How come? Yeah, he says, I know my brother, and I could step in ahead of him. He's supposed to inherit everything. I don't, I want it. and he figures out the way to Esau's heart is through his stomach. And so he says, I'll give you this. Smell it, Esau, smell it. Look at this warm bread. I'll sell it to you. What a brother, huh? What a nice guy. And so you can see we're setting things up for family issues. There's going to be some hard feelings coming down the road, and we can see it right now. Number 11, this episode sets up the narrative that follows, but it also gives some insight into the character of each of the brothers. Based on this story, what was Esau like? Free spirit, wild, driven by whatever's in front of him at the moment, impetuous, makes decisions on a dime, doesn't think things through. Whatever he wants is what he wants. And he's just looking at the temporary, right now. What do I want right now? Well, I want food. I don't care about anything else, just give me food. He has no capability of looking ahead and seeing the consequences of decisions or actions. Number 12, read Hebrews 12, 15 through 17, paying careful attention to the word godless. Why would the author of Hebrews use that word, describing Esau? So Esau doesn't seem to be able to tell what is profane, what is common and ordinary and doesn't really matter, and the things that are sacred, the things that are God-honoring, the things that are worthwhile and valuable. To him, it's all the same. He has no appreciation for things that ought to be seen as special, as godly, as sacred. He can't see that. He's just, whatever I want is what I want. And so he is called godless in that passage. Number 13, Moses, the human author of Genesis, says in Genesis 25:34 that Esau despised his birthright. Why would he use that word? He didn't value it. It has no meaning to him. This is a sacred duty and responsibility in the ancient Middle East. The eldest son is supposed to step up and say, I'm going to handle it. He doesn't want it. He wants to be out hunting in the fields. But a godly man, a firstborn son, who saw his duty would say, well, duty comes first. But that's not what Esau does. Yes, yeah. By his failure to see what God values, he's charting his own course, and his own course is going to go away from God's plan. Correct. No, he has no value placed on the right things. Number 14, based on the Genesis 25 episode, how would you describe Jacob? What did he value? So he has keen insight. He can see the value of things. He has keen insight into the character of people. He can tell what his brother's like. He can tell what motivates his brother. He can see that. But instead of using his keen insight to be a blessing and to be a help to others, he's going to use it for what? For me. So there are people who are very smart, very insightful. They have a keen understanding of human nature, and they could use that for God's glory and to be a blessing, but instead they use it to promote themselves. And that is what Jacob is doing. So he's using whatever means he wants to achieve his own ends at the cost of somebody else. Number 15, in what sense might you say that Jacob was opportunistic? Well, we've kind of been describing that this whole time. Should Christians be opportunistic? If no, why not? If yes, in what sense? Trick question. Or
we should have every opportunity to tell people about the Lord Jesus, but we should never do anything to just self-aggrandize ourselves.
exactly. So opportunistic, yes, if I'm looking for ways to glorify God and be a blessing to others. Every chance I get. Any little thing that happens at Walmart, in the parking lot, in church, on the telephone, whatever. If there's an opportunity to step in and be a blessing to somebody or to point somebody to Christ, yes, I'm opportunistic. But where somebody kind of lets their guard down, and I could take advantage of that, I could use that for myself. No, not to take advantage of somebody else. If somebody was getting into a car at Hannaford and you saw them drop their wallet, would you wait for them to leave and go pick it up and say, look at that, $50? No, you wouldn't do that. That's immoral. That's godless. That's wrong. And that's what Jacob did. He took advantage of his brother. So yes, looking for opportunities to be a blessing and to glorify the Lord. No, for taking advantage of people. What lessons can we learn from both Esau and Jacob so far? Yep.
Being willing to take responsibility. The other thing is that Jacob could have justified his own actions by his brother's irresponsibility beforehand and said, well, I'm the perfect guy for this job. Esau
Amen. Anybody else? Yeah, they're all about themselves, aren't they? Both of them. Esau says, give me a bow and arrow and let me get outside. And he doesn't care about anybody or anybody else, anything else. And yes, yeah, yep, yep, yep. So both of them are very self-centered. What else? Okay, take your prayer bulletins, please.